Good evening, White Sox fans. It is December 3rd, 2025. This is the latest edition of the Future Sox MLB centric podcast known as Hot Takes and Heaters. My name is Danny Miller, the gentleman who joins me most regularly and is my awesome and young co-host Jacob Thome is a gentleman you see on your screen and will hear tickling your eardrums this evening. We appreciate all you guys in the chat. Thanks for jumping in, and all of our podcast downloaders and listeners as well too. We don't give you guys enough credit, so thanks for checking in with us. We're gonna get into some different White Sox topics. I'm going to offer some different opinions tonight. I'm gonna keep Jacob on his toes this evening, but obviously we're going to go ahead and jump into some White Sox contests. We're gonna address the elephants multiple in the room since we took the week off last week for the holidays. So hope everybody enjoyed that. How about you, Jake? How you doing, man? Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I did. Finally, cook Thanksgiving for dinner for the first time. I didn't do anything, but I did do.
What? Oh,
I do something, but yeah, no, had a good little break. Got to do some high school basketball. So yeah, no complaints.
yeah, yeah. I definitely spent the evening with some of my very closest friends, which I consider family. Uh, Man, we had a spread, dude. I'm sure I'm putting on pounds, by the second here over the holiday season. I mean, I felt like I was putting on weight just looking at the damn spread that we had out there last week. So yeah, all in all, it was a good week. Um, I am happy to report that all of a sudden in the last couple days here, my double ear infection seems to be getting better. I don't want to jinx it too much. I'm not going to say it's there, but it's getting better. So things
Heck
are on
yeah.
the up and up. But yeah, man. Um, so I want to kind of just take out today's most recent news and just jump off with that. Obviously, it's the biggest thing happening right now. The White Sox made a move this morning. Did you see that?
I did.
All right. So White Sox picked up a pitcher on the international market from Asia. K. What the hell is his first name? You want to help me out?
Anthony.
There you go.
Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony K. Former Blue Jays, Mets, Cubs, uh, bullpen guy in the majors here in the states. Spent 5 years here. Numbers didn't look really awesome. He did some things by eating some innings for some teams and getting some situational appearances and whatnot, but not really the best numbers, right? Nothing that jumps off the page. And he goes over to Japan, right? And in Japan, they decide to stretch him out, make him a starter. Right? But they put him in rotation. Guy, and the crazy thing is this is pretty unusual. You don't see a guy who's like 28, 29 years old who's already been a reliever for 5 years in the majors, all of a sudden become a starter who's putting up close to 200 innings, a season, right? And he goes over to Japan and he does this and turns into a different pitcher. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this type of move and what you kind of think about what Getz is doing and maybe Bannister kind of you know pulling some strings in that general direction.
Yeah, I think I'd be a little bit more worried about this move if this hadn't worked 2 years ago with Eric Fetty. It was
Exactly where I was going to go.
pretty similar type of move. A guy goes overseas, adds a couple of pitches, they work. He's a command first guy. The White Sox probably have the best history of anybody of doing this with Fetty.
Yeah, at least recently with Fetty
Yeah,
for sure.
recently. I don't know how many guys. Um, I don't. I'm not sure what the numbers are on guys going back. overseas and then coming back. I don't know if that's more recent of a thing, but it certainly worked for Fetty, who worked for the White Sox, didn't work for the Cardinals, and wherever he signs, best of luck to him. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to go, quote unquote, shopping at the bargain bin, I wouldn't call $5 million a year shopping at the bargain bin. But if you're going to spend $5 million a year on a pitcher, I think this is one heck of a way to do it. Excited to kind of see what he comes into the season looking like. I mean, they needed another starter in that rotation. They have an interesting workload right now of guys who either underperformed last season or are kind of becoming off of Tommy John or our prospects. And so having a guy who you can kind of hopefully count on to give you 150 innings of 4 ERA ball is the hope for the White Sox.
Yeah, you know what? I I immediately had thoughts of Fetty when this kind of came up. And if we look back at the Fetty trade, taking what's gone on with him since joining the Cardinals and then the Cardinals and again trading him away. But if you look at just the White Sox end of this and you look at what they've got in return for Eric Fetty, and Miguel Vargas probably being, the biggest piece of that right now, who's been an everyday staple with the White Sox since that move in at the deadline in 24. I gotta say that this move is very much reminiscent of that. And, even if they don't get exactly the same thing out of him as they did with Fetty, he might actually have a little bit more value, being that, again, the contract is, I think it's like a 6 million AAV. Actually, I think he's getting 5 this year and 7 next or whatever. So I mean, if you average it out, but whatever. The reality is you've got, let's say he gets traded at the deadline this year. He does some things, gets traded at the deadline. You've got essentially a year and a half of full control. And then the White Sox also had a option. I believe it was a $10 million option for 28 as well. That could, in fact, garner a little bit more of a return in a trade for the White Sox if he performs at a fairly decent level with that much control on a lower payroll. You know what I mean? A lower AAV contract for a starting pitcher. So I think it's probably an indicator of what our offseason is going to look like, because obviously since Chris Getz has taken over and this, we're probably, I guess you would call it almost going into year 3 of the current regime's rebuild, ish, I guess. I feel like this offseason is probably going to be, it's probably going to be much like the last 2 off seasons, right? You're going to see a lot of guys with high upside that haven't maybe really performed yet, or the Sox can get them on the cheap and try to flip to get as much value as they can towards the rebuild. And possibly turn even more of those trades coming into flippable pieces as well. So, are you tired? Am I
A little
boring
bit.
you? You over here yawning on my
No,
screen? What's wrong with you?
I think it's a light thing. I don't know. Whenever I have too many brights, because I have a light here, a light there, and then my
Okay.
computer light. I don't know, something about it.
I'm just gonna go ahead and rip a heater,
There you go.
and I'm gonna let you
Yeah,
work out. I'm gonna let you work out whatever it is you need to work out. Take a no dose, or get you a big fat cup of coffee.
not
Maybe
this early
something
in
a
the
little
night.
more illicit. I don't know. Whatever it takes, brother.
No, but no. I mean, going back to exactly what you just said. Yeah, I think this is a chance for them to either flip him at the deadline or whatever they want to do. The official contract I think is 10 years or 2 years, 12 mil, but it's 5 mil each year, and then it's a $2 million buyout if they decide
That's
not to
right.
opt in. So um, a little bit of crafty work from either Getz or Barfield, whoever put that deal together. But no, I think it's a good deal. We'll see. Comparing these to last season, I don't think there's going to be as many signings. I think there'll be more. Uh, I think the AAV on some of these contracts will be a little bit higher. I don't think they're going to be grabbing any more, you won't see any more like Vinny Capras, those type of guys, because they have too many of them on the roster. I mean, there's a need for a corner outfielder. There's a need at first base, and then I think there's now a need at in the bullpen still. But I don't think they're going to add another starter. I would be shocked if they did. I feel like um, they're good there, in my opinion. I don't know what Chad has to say about that, but yeah, I think bullpen and then a first baseman and whatever, a corner outfielder or potentially both in one player um, could be the move of the way.
Yeah, it's early, right? It's only the first week of December. I don't really know what they're obviously we talked about. I'm going to back this trade up a little bit. We talked about this last show. How it seemed like they had a direction and we weren't exactly sure what that direction was, but you could kind of read between the lines and figure out a little bit of what that direction was. Now I feel like there's more of a precedent, and it's going to be a lot like the last couple of years where again, we're signing guys that could possibly be guys that could stick around and help in the future if they can pull themselves together, or as Chris Getz has said in the past, he's going to listen to all in any trade proposals and figure out if they are ones that can benefit the team in the coming years. So again, if this is one of those things that tends to happen as the White Sox have worked out the last couple of years, where they can flip it into maybe a better player or multiple better players, guys with higher ceilings that don't have a history of having to work their way back to the major leagues, i.e. Eric Fetty or Anthony Kay. I think Chris Getz will do that. And, again, the hot topic for the next year is going to be the impending doom that is set up for after the 2026 season. That will be the next CBA. And nobody expects the White Sox, or probably most of baseball, let's be honest, to go out and make the big free agent signings right now. Right now, I don't think there's going to be a ton of those 5, 6, 7, 8-year, 10-year deals that we see. I was actually kind of shocked to see Cease get his bag the other day, especially if there's going to be a shutdown. Pitchers are obviously more volatile, and if time is missed and they're not getting to work, that really kind of shakes things up a little bit. But yeah, the idea is basically they're going to continue to bargain hunt and try to get the most out of these bargains. And they're not just looking bottom of the barrel bargains. They're looking at something that can help improve the team in the future.
Yeah, 100%.
So
100%.
that being said, and I talked about the elephants multiple in the room. The winter meetings, obviously, starting on Monday. It's been finally announced, or pretty much announced, that the draft lottery will be happening on the 9th. For a while there, it was kind of just pending. But it seems now that it's going to happen on the 9th. So, as Sox fans, we'll be kind of keeping an eye on that. But the real big question now is the rumor mill's heating up around Luis Robert Jr. Now, raise your hand if you are getting tired of hearing about Luis Robert Jr. without any actual news about if Luis Robert Jr. is going to be traded or not, or whether or not he has value on this 2026, or I'm sorry, the 2026 team, or if he's going to be better off going somewhere else if we can get the return for it. I particularly am getting a little bit, how shall we say, I don't want to say tired. It's just getting a little old.
Stagnant.
Yeah, that's a very good word. It's getting a little stagnant. But again, until there is movement or not, which means, we're going all the way to the start of the regular season at that point. But if there's movement or not, unfortunately, it's going to be a topic. And we're going to continue to hear about Luis Robert Jr. on a very regular basis. But the idea right now, and the reason I even say that I'm tired of hearing about it is if we go back to last year's trade deadline, and then even more recently, just beyond this year's trade deadline, more importantly, in early August, Chris Getz, came out and said something like, we're totally committed to Luis Robert Jr. and he's a big asset to the organization, and the speaking through the teeth type of thing when we discuss Luis Robert Jr. and his potential ceiling, right? But now the rumors are kind of heating up. Merck has talked about it. Jeff Passan has, he's really been kind of floating it out there. And now, even more recently, we've got the Cubs guy here in Chicago, Jesse Rogers. I believe it was earlier today, pushing for the Phillies to make a move. Which I want to get your thoughts on this. Have you heard any of this? And what do you think about a potential Luis Robert to the Phillies trade?
Yeah, Passan ranked him, I think, 21st in terms of who's likely to move next. But then also in one of his tweets he kind of he put some players into tiers and said uh, along the lines of, it's not a matter of if they get traded, but when they get traded, we're just trying to figure out where they're going to go. Um, my whole thought about this is, I think Everson Pereira was when that trade was made. I think everybody went, well, he's a center fielder. But so was Michael A. Taylor. Like, I think you're okay replacing potentially Taylor with Pereira and having him as a fourth outfielder or whatever that looks like for you. I'm just not sold that the White Sox are truly anything's changed on the White Sox front, because I think the White Sox have been shopping Luis Robert for the last now
Yeah,
year and
since
a
like
half.
at least right.
2023 deadline. Um,
I'd say
I think
probably
there's
the off season between 23 and 24. 23, I mean, that was his all star season. I don't think they were really
right, yeah.
pushing too much there.
But I think when you look back at what gets said in the summer, and I don't think anything's changed. I think the Sox are going to remain adamant of, if you give me the right offer, we'll move him. But I don't think any of these offers that were offered last year, um, if they don't approve upon those offers, I wouldn't get rid of him. I think if you decide to hold on to him through this year, nothing's going to change in terms of what you're selling him on next year, the deadline. Even if he's hurt, as long as he's not out for the year, you're still selling a team on, okay, he's got potential. He can be a 5-tool player. That's what you're selling him on now. I think I'd rather have him play the first half of this season with the White Sox and see if he turns into an all-star player again. That player's still in there for Luis if he can stay healthy. It's just, can he stay healthy? He showed a nice flash last year, kind of right before the deadline, and then throughout the past the deadline, then he got hurt. I don't know. If I'm the Sox, I'm in no need to move him. I think if you get a great offer, take it, but certainly not have to move Luis Robert thing.
Yeah, and I think what's driving these rumors right now is the obvious missing contingent of impactful outfielders in the free agent class this offseason. There really isn't anybody out there that's going to be a major impact player for any of these teams unless somebody comes out of a slump or a hole. But even if that were to happen, Luis Robert Jr. is the guy that the whole league knows is out there that offers that kind of upside. There's nobody out there in the free agent market. There's nobody in the trade market that offers anywhere close to Luis Robert Jr.'s upside. But again, you bring up the fact that he spent the better part of the second half injured again. It was great to see him healthy in the first half, 33 stolen bases. His defense is far and above what most guys can do. He's gliding around that outfield like nobody's business. He offers some really big upside and potential to a lot of these teams, regardless if the bat isn't going the way we know it can for him. And the other side of that coin is if you put him in a lineup where he's protected, where he's got other guys that are helping him out and seeing pitches, seeing better pitches and more pitches, he potentially could unlock that offense again. And let's be honest, he hasn't seemed like the same player in this White Sox organization for the last couple of years mentally. He's just not, I don't know if it's the vertigo that, he's experienced in the past. I don't know if it's playing for a bad team that just can't get above 60 wins for the last 2 years. A lot of that kind of weighs on a guy. He's been in an organization where he's watched the guys that he came up with, come and go. Some of them not even in baseball anymore, and they were all told that they were going to be the next superstar generation and the next contender on the south side of Chicago, when none of it really came to fruition aside from two really short, single win seasons of playoff appearances. And even in those single wins, I mean, it looked like there was no chance they were going to even get, anywhere close to getting out of the first round. So I think that kind of weighs on a player. Maybe a change of scenery is what he needs. And again, it all comes down to if he can stay healthy or not. But the fact that there's not a whole lot of free agent outfielders out there right now, it leaves me with a couple of questions that are pertinent to the White Sox. Number one being, since there's nobody really in the White Sox organization that's poised and ready to take over center field on a daily basis, does he provide more value to the White Sox than trading him away? Because let's be honest, I'm going to start with this question. We'll move on to my next, observations afterwards, but I'm going to start with this question. If they trade Luis Robert Jr. before the season starts, after coming off a 60-win season, right? That was a 19-game improvement, by the way. It's just how bad they were the year before. Is there the potential for them to backslide from that 60 games, those 60 wins? And honestly, if that were to happen, that's probably the absolute worst thing that can happen at this stage of the rebuild, when we've got guys that are just now figuring out how to win at the major league level. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to play devil's advocate to that, I think, listen, they won 70, or they were on pace for 70 wins last year in the second half without Luis. So I think, if you take that into consideration, I think it's going to be hard for them to not at least meet 60 wins. And they're going to get some prospects up. Obviously, there's hope that Braden Montgomery will be up at a point. Hagen, potential. Noah, I think there's a lot of hope there. McDougal's on the 40-man now. So there'll be more pieces called up. But, yeah, I think it's a tough – they need to figure out which direction they want to go in. Do they want to kind of keep trying to hold enough of it together to power forward, or do they want to try to release some of these guys who have a little bit of trade value and move them for future pieces and keep trying to tumble this thing forward? So I think there's a decision to be made there. I think it'll be interesting to see what gets is. I think we'll have a clearer decision after this offseason for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I know the whole world wants to crown, Braden Montgomery right off the bat here, right? But I mean, the reality is he played in 3 levels in the minors last year, and as good as he was, it wasn't like he was absolutely amazing. Like, let's be honest. I mean, we here at FutureSox like him because he does show a super amount of potential, and he's a high ceiling guy. But there's still work to do. I mean, if you look at what happened with him over the past season, and again, now he went through his own little minor injuries and things over the last couple of years, but nothing, too crucial, too critical. But he's just not there yet, right? He's not. I just don't see him being on the opening day roster as much as people want to do that. And to be quite frankly honest with you, I don't believe that it's going to be good for his development to expose him that early. He still needs a little seasoning. He still needs a little confidence building. He still needs a little coaching. And, as much as you can do in the off season, that's all fantastic. But when it comes to the feeling of playing in actual games against actual competition. He needs to kind of weather himself just a little bit more, right? I don't foresee him coming up. I mean, at the very earliest, I would say June, and that's if he's off to an absolutely on fire start and forces the hand of the organization to make that happen. But I just don't see it happening. So, outfield depth for the White Sox right now isn't spectacular. You brought up Everson Pereira, and that I think that's a fantastic move for the state of the White Sox Major League Ball Club right now. But I'm going to offer up now. This is the second part that I wanted to offer up to you is that because there is no depth and there is no big free agents out there, does that make Andrew Benintendi more attractive for a trade? And can he garner a little bit? I mean, he may not garner a huge return, but it's going to get some of his money off the books. And I do believe Brooks Baldwin is going to continue to boost his game, shall we say. He's going to continue to develop and grow. I think it's going to be a big part of his offseason workout is getting to be a better outfielder. And we saw a lot of growth from him just in the short amount of time that he was playing in the outfield last season, learning on the fly, if you will. Do you think that makes Andrew Benintendi a valuable piece for maybe one of these teams to pick up?
Yeah, I think there's potential. I mean, there's 32 million reasons why a team wouldn't be attracted to Andrew Benintendi, but no,
Let's say the
I
White
mean,
Sox eat some of that contract.
yeah, I mean that's what it would take, right? But I think if you're, you got to kind of pick your spot on where you think a move makes sense. I mean, I think a team's going to, trade for Benintendi, hoping there's more there. Obviously, when the Sox signed him, he was coming off an All-Star appearance. I think there's obviously a fantastic end of the season for Benintendi. And maybe you can parallel that into some sort of trade. I don't hate the idea. I mean, I would assume he's being shopped. I just don't know what the interest looks like
Right,
because
right,
of the contract.
right. And again, this is all just me floating some different ideas out there, and we're hearing a lot about because quite frankly, I'm getting sick of talking about the same things, and the bloggers, the writers, the journalists, they all are basically putting the same thing out over and over again and just rewording it. There is no real big major news coming out around it, but yet we hear about it every day. Well, the Phillies are interested, the Reds are interested, the Giants are interested. Those are the same teams that were interested during the the midseason trade deadline. They were the same teams that were interested at the in the off season last year, and there's been no movement. And quite frankly, that's the thing that kind of irritates me more than anything is we're just regurgitating over and over again the same content, and we're just changing the wording up. But the difference is now is again, this offseason doesn't really offer a whole lot in the way of free agent outfielders. So, when it comes to Benintendi, I think that he could potentially, if the White Sox are going to have such a low payroll that we've been talking about, I feel like they can eat some of the money off of the years remaining on that contract and still stay well below what they wanted to. Get him off the books. Let Brooks Baldwin play. Keep Luis Robert Jr. till midseason and hope to pray that he has a decent first half. And the reason I say this is, Benintendi's typically a slow starter. He has been since he's joined the White Sox. His second half has been exponentially better than his first half most of the time he's been with the White Sox, right? Including last year. I think his value is at his highest now than it is as a midseason trade deadline move. Because if he starts out slow again, and you do trade him for whatever, probably lesser value than you're going to get, and then he's going to go and he's going to do what he typically does and light up in the second half, and immediately fans are going to be like, "Well, the Sox got fleeced again."
Yeah. Yeah.
You have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, it all makes sense. I just think, again, I think if you can find the piece for him, um, you do it. It's just it's going to be a pro. But I like your point that it is a weaker class of it's a weak free agent class in general. I mean, now with Cease off the board, there's not a whole lot of obviously Tucker's the big name um, to go, but yeah, I just I would hope they're able to find it. I would hope that they're able to eat some money. I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I just wanted to offer up something slightly different than what you're hearing
Mhm.
about on a day-to-day basis. And I feel like it's probably an easier position to have a replacement player at, i.e., in Brooks Baldwin in the organization. Again, we can talk about all the shortstops that the White Sox have drafted in the last couple of years. They've got a couple of college guys that they drafted in the last draft that were near major league ready. I do expect to probably see one or two of those guys on this roster at some point. The current 40-man sits at 35 after today's signing of Anthony K, pending his physical. Obviously, nothing's set in stone. But yeah, I mean, replacing Luis Robert Jr.'s speed and defense in center field is going to be extremely difficult at this point. And my biggest fear is that they backslide from that 60-win season. Now, you can say what you want about the young talent and the core, and that's fantastic. But again, they're young. And that scares me a little bit if there is any kind of backslide. What does that do to their confidence and their mentality moving forward? And then if they were happen to backslide, the 2026 season ends and we go into a work stoppage. And I
Yeah.
feel like that just craters the entire thing.
Yeah.
And now we're starting all over again when baseball comes back after this, I mean it's almost inevitable work stoppage. So it's kind of frightening. The more I look at it and the more I think about it, what the future could look like. I put faith in Chris Getz. I was not on his side in the beginning. I am now putting a lot of faith into what he's doing and the changes he's made in the organization. But the way things are looking right now, the state of the outfield, believe it or not, we went from, having just a hole in right field for so many years and a hole at second base to now we've got holes at first base that we've never really had holes at before. We still have, it looks like our whole outfield is kind of shaky at the moment. And we still don't have an everyday second baseman. And here we are, like I said, moving into year 3 of the rebuild. So they have to get this one right this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, there's you bring up the middle infield there. There's going to be some interesting decisions to be made there. I don't know. I really don't know what they're going to do. If Lanine's going to be traded, if they're going to move Lanine to first, if they're going to move Vargas to first, I don't know.
I don't envy
Well, they
Chris
have to
Getz
do something.
this year. I
Yeah,
don't envy the White Sox
yeah,
front office. Again, we talk about it. There's an obvious plan. But there was an obvious plan with the last regime. One that most of us
yeah,
felt pretty good about.
yeah,
Right? So I'm not trying to be doom and gloom here because I have high hopes. And we have been more than positive the last, I don't know. I mean, we've been more than positive for the better part of the time that you and I spent together since this past February. Going back to February when we brought you on here at FutureSox. I feel like we've been mostly positive. We try to find the bright spots and everything. And I still continue to hold that positivity, but I'm also a realist. And I want to, kind of make sure that we curb our expectations a little bit. Maybe I was a little too positive, coming into this offseason. We were talking about, Ishbia and the new ownership possibilities and the new coaching staff and the new technology that they're using and the larger analytics department and the better strength and conditioning department. I'm still all for all those things. Don't get me wrong. I just think that this is a very critical offseason for the
Yeah.
White Sox. Maybe the most important of this current rebuild.
Yeah, I think when you compare the rebuilds, right? Because I think that's what a lot of people want to do. I think the one credit I think Getz is going to get is that he's put more focus into um, player development, and I think you can see that throughout the system, and you've seen that um, now with Bannister over the last 2 years. You've seen it with Fuller in year one. Um, we'll see what the new coaches look like. I'm excited to see what a new hitting coach, a new pitching coach, and maybe that's more of a reason as well to bring Luis back. If you think that, uh, Luis last year had a career best walk rate. He did some encouraging things at the plate. Maybe it gives you more confidence in bringing in a guy like Anthony Kay. I don't know. I'm not quite sure, but I think that if you're looking for a main difference, if you're a White Sox fan who's negative, and you have a right to be negative, it's back-to-back 100 loss seasons, and you're thinking, all right, why should I care? What's the difference? I think the one thing you can point to is the player development aspect.
Yeah, no disagreement there whatsoever. They have welcomed themselves to the 21st century. A little late, but here we are. They're here. They are making the right decisions in those departments and bringing themselves up to speed with many of the organizations that they lacked behind for so long. So that's all encouraging. And again, I'm not here to poo-poo on anything. I'm just here to speak the realistic side and the potential of what could happen if things don't go according to plan for the White Sox this year. So again, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on Luis Robert Jr. It's going to continue to come up. Let's be honest. Until there's movement or there isn't movement, between now and opening day, if he's still on the roster at opening day, you can pretty much bet that it's going to be a near daily occurrence that somebody's talking about Luis Robert Jr. somewhere. So
Yeah.
just trying to offer up some different opinions and insights on, what I'm kind of seeing out there. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about. So Uncle Ted seems to think he's going to the Mets. I could see that happening. I just don't know that that's a thing. I think they're a very good fit for Luis Robert Jr., especially, so tell me, have you heard about this Steve Cohen coming out and instead of being the typical, billionaire owner in the major leagues, he's taken responsibility, right? He's come out and he actually apologized to his fan base. And he's like, listen, I'm trying. I'm out here trying to do this thing. It didn't quite work, but we're going to continue to try. He's giving his fan base some, I don't know how you want to call it. I mean, he's trying to instill confidence that he's going to continue to look for the best possible situation for his team. And if it costs him more money, he's going to do it. What is that like?
4 more years? 5 more years? 3 more years? Is it only 3 more years?
No, I think the earliest it can happen is
29, right?
2030.
No, 29.
Yeah, so I mean that's at the very earliest. I think it was a 10-year window that was opened up.
Yeah, 2029
early,
to 2039.
Earlier this year, so I think it was 10 years from 25. So I think we're looking at like 2030 to 2035 or something. 2034. 2029 to 2034, whatever that was. We talked about the potential of that timeline being moved up if Ishbia's, trying to force his hand. I don't really know. Jerry's 90. It looks great for a 90-year-old. To your
looks
point,
great.
You did say that, and many others have as well. But at some point, when do you quit? When do you give up? When do you let somebody else take over? We're 45 years of misery here on the South Side.
I'd like it if you sell the other one too. That's a different podcast, but if you could sell both of them, that'd be great. No, I mean, yeah, I don't know what having an owner with responsibility and actually caring about the product on the field is like, but hopefully it's coming soon.
Well, again, the youth movement's there. We did have some exciting moments last season. I look forward to more of that this season. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes the next few years. And like I said, I feel like this year could be more important than yeah, well, maybe not. It depends on what happens after this, after the CBA comes out next year, and whether or not there's a floor or a ceiling, or what when it comes to payroll, whether they put a soft floor or in a hard cap, or vice versa. We've had this kind of soft cap with the luxury tax for a while now. I think it's going to be one of the biggest topics that come up. Obviously the players union is going to fight against it. The owners are going to fight for it. But I want to talk about this just a little bit because, again, this is going to be the next elephant in the room that's going to kind of come. It's going to be a bugaboo that we're going to be hearing about, much like Lewis Robert Jr. for a long time. This work stoppage. There obviously is talks that the players union is never going to go for salary cap, right? You've heard this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And there are folks out there that tend to think that there are some staunch owners who are going to stick to their guns. But I think the difference now is we're actually seeing, and this is why I brought up Cohen. I was kind of segueing to this. We're seeing a different ownership style come into play here. And we're seeing more ownerships and ownership groups spend a little bit more money and kind of hold themselves accountable to their fan bases, and they're being a little bit more transparent about how they want to go about doing business. Is there a chance in your mind that there's enough of these owners to take a stronghold in these meetings when it comes time for the CEBA to kind of get rid of some of the dinosaurs like Jerry Reinsdorf? Can they drown out the Jerry Reinsdorfs of the ownership side of this agreement coming up?
Yeah, I've said this a couple of times, but the Sox are in an interesting situation because Jerry will push for a salary cap. But the White Sox in general, Ishbia will not want a salary cap. Ishbia would want to spend as much as possible. And so you have a couple of these new owners. I think Baltimore's kind of in that group where they replace a bad owner with something decent. You have hopefully the Twins are in the area to sell to a decent ownership group. Could add Ishbia, but you don't.
Yeah, I mean, San Diego took a team that was perpetually, in the negatives, and had a huge amount of debt, and a team of investment bankers bought out and became the new ownership group. And not only did they turn that team around, they built a new stadium and a new event park around that stadium with all kinds of restaurants and all kinds of different events. They made it a destination, which a lot of people say is absolutely gorgeous. I've yet to see it in person. And immediately after that, decided to go out and spend a ton in free agency.
Yeah, so I mean, there are new owners since the last time this thing. I don't know if you want to call it. What was that? 21, the last CBA meeting. That was really a kick the can down the road. Since we've had a big market issue like this, there's a ton of new owners, and so we'll kind of see what that looks like. But yeah, I'm interested to see how this whole thing goes. It was an interesting story to follow in 21. Hopefully, it doesn't result in any missed time, but I would be shocked if it didn't. And yeah.
Yeah, and for those of you who are listening and not part of our chat, I just highlighted a comment from Uncle Ted. He says no market is smaller than San Diego, and it's kind of why I bring them up, as they are a very small market club, yet they do things on a very large market scale, right? And they have been doing these things since the new ownership group took over. And for my part, my idea in this is, we continually hear that the White Sox are, yes, we're in the third largest market the third largest city in the country, but they are definitely not a large market team because they share this market with the Chicago Cubs and blah 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 blah. I'm so tired of hearing about it, but they operate as if they are a small market team, and people want to point to attendance constantly, but attendance is a very small drop in the bucket as far as where the money's coming from these days, right? I hate, I absolutely hate that argument that the White Sox can't do things like a large market team. I think it's garbage. I think it's bullshit, quite frankly. And I cannot wait for the day because it's come up again where Congress is like, maybe we look into this whole thing about, Major League Baseball being allowed to keep their books closed and not be, they're not a publicly traded business. So, they don't have to open their books up to the public. I honestly think there's a lot of shade in that because we're seeing small market teams do big market things and not use excuses. So
Yeah, I don't. I know that there's a deal with the city of Chicago or whoever owns that stadium that if they keep the
yeah,
whatever
it's the Illinois
under
Sports Authority or whatever that it
yeah
owns the
ISAC,
stadium.
if you keep it under 1 million, you get or whatever the number is for total attendance, you get a tax break. Well, like when the team was good in 22 or in 21, like the stadium was packed. Like there was a couple, like obviously the playoff games were packed, but like I remember some of those Guardian games on the weekends. Like it was a great environment. The stadium was packed. Like the fans will show up if you put a decent product on the field. That's been the entire thing. Like if they're not in the situation where they're at Wrigley and they have tourists driving that market and a lot of people who don't pay attention to baseball. Going to their games. Like, yeah, but if you put a decent product on the field, people will show up. Um, and so I think it's a horrible excuse. They shouldn't be treated as a small market team. They're not treated as a small market team. That's why we, didn't pick top, 10 or couldn't pick top 10 in back-to-back years, whatever. So yeah, it's a horrible excuse. It's bad ownership. And yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate that because you just gave me our next segue, actually. Next week, we talked about it at the beginning of this show, but next week, winter meetings kick off. We'll see how interesting that goes. Hopefully, these guys are sitting down, at least prefacing the 2027 CBA and maybe trying to put some ideas and things together. By the way, if you're listening to us on podcast form or if you're in the chat with us live tonight, we will be kind of taking the time to focus a little bit more on what we believe those demands are going to be and what's out there, and maybe offer up some of our own solutions and ideas of this over the coming weeks. I just want to get through the winter meetings. There's typically a slow point between the winter meetings and the holidays, so we'll discuss that a little bit because it's going to be a big deal. But I think I at least want to talk about the ninth and the draft lottery and the White Sox having a 27.22% chance, the highest odds at getting the first pick this year. Why don't you go ahead? Do you have any thoughts on this?
I do. The 9th and the 10th are going to be big days for the White
Rule
Sox.
5.
Obviously, we'll have the Rule of 5 as well. But no, for the Sox, it's a loaded class. It's about as big as it gets. Rock is a great player, and if he's there, great. If not, there's about 5 other players that will probably go 1 in last year's class. It's really, really a loaded class. Yeah, 27.7% chance of the Sox picking first. I don't know the last time they picked first. I should obviously know that. I don't. But
Don't hurt yourself. It's been a hot minute.
good. I was about to say, it definitely hasn't been in my lifetime. No, so I mean, it's a loaded class. I'm excited to see what happens. I don't know. I should also know this for sure. I don't know how far they can fall. I think it's 4, but again, I could
Well, and
totally be off my
I
rocker.
think they can. I think they could fall all the way to 6 if I'm not mistaken. Although getting beyond 4, the numbers become astronomically low. The chances, odds become astronomically low. Uh, but see, here's the thing with the draft odds, right? So they're a 27 plus percent chance. They have, so basically the draft lottery works like any other lottery. They put a bunch of balls into a hopper. They let this thing spin around and it spits out a ball. So obviously the White Sox with the highest chances get the most balls in that, in the lottery. Uh as each team as is each pick becomes apparent and they go through this round by round, the balls of the team that got their pick last come out. So everybody who has remaining balls in that hopper, in that lottery machine, those their odds obviously increase every single time this happens. Now, that being said, if let's say on the crazy odds, and it's happened in the past where the teams with the lower odds somehow get the higher picks, that's less balls coming out of that hopper than, let's say, if the team with the first or second or third highest odds uh end up getting picked with the first pick, right? So if the White Sox aren't first, we hope that it's one of the teams that are directly behind them, right? Because the more balls that come out of that machine, the White Sox odds increase in getting the next pick or two after that. Uh, the crazy thing is it's never happened that the team
Yeah.
with the highest odds gets the first pick. Now, I mentioned in a Facebook group the other day that I just feel like that makes them overdue, but reality says even at 27% chance, the odds really aren't in your favor because that's still, a 72, 73% chance that you don't get the first pick, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're really the odds, even though we have the best odds, they're still not in our favor to get it. But I want to keep an open and optimistic mind that the White Sox will be the first. After getting screwed royally last year and having the possible worst outcome the year before, when it came to the to the lottery, I mean, something's got to fall our way at some point, right?
Yeah. Right. Hopefully. If you lose 100 games twice in a row, you should be guaranteed a first overall pick.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about this draft lottery. I think they should probably that needs to be addressed, but at the same time, it's probably still the best way that they've done it to date. So I don't know. And again, I don't know. What are your feelings of the lottery in general? Do you prefer the lottery, or would you rather go back to the team with the best or the team with the worst record gets the best pick? Does that encourage the tank and less competitive baseball?
No, I like the lottery.
Do you?
I think bad teams shouldn't just. I don't know. It's not a tanking thing. It's just I don't want to see bad teams be okay with losing because they know they're going to get the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, I guess that feels like tanking. Maybe not tanking on purpose, but maybe not putting your best
Not
foot forward.
trying. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It's tough, man. It really is because on the one side we did get a couple of years there. White Sox might have been guilty of it themselves during the last rebuild of tanking for a higher pick, and we saw some bad baseball. It wasn't just the White Sox. We saw some bad baseball across the board. There was a clear line of haves and have-nots, and the have-nots seemed as if though they were trying to be have-nots. So yeah, it's I don't know, it's a fine line. I'm not really sure where I stand in it. I think I do prefer the lottery as well. I just don't know that the lottery is as fine-tuned as it could be, and there might be ways to fix that situation. Maybe that's something we can sit down and put our heads together about, and maybe come up with slightly better outcome.
Yeah, I think I will say that I think the if you pick top 5, you can't pick top 10 thing is stupid. I think that rule is egregiously dumb
Again, I think that's.
for
I mean,
large market teams.
obviously, it's there for the purpose of not tanking, but yeah, it's flawed for sure.
I just think it's dumb that a small market team can tank and a large market team can't tank. I don't that seems like inequality to me. I don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. I'll tell you what though. I mean, looking at what the White Sox have, and you're right, it is a pretty monster draft class coming up here. Uh, but I feel like after Rock Chalowski, there's a clear step. Now, granted,
Yeah,
once the college season gets going again, that might change, how the way prospects are. But as of right now, I mean, Rock's like way up here, and then the next four guys or so they're better than a lot of other draft classes for sure, but they're not Rock. they're at
yeah.
a different
He's the
level.
best prospects in two Skeens, which I isn't going back that far, but like,
I don't know, honestly, from a an offensive standpoint. I mean,
is he better than who's buddy man? Oh boy, who's the guy in Washington? Skeens' teammate. Oh my god, see his face? Can't remember his name at all. Brady House is the name that's coming to me, which is hilarious because that's not even close.
it's not him.
Oh
Come
my
on,
gosh,
pull it out. Pull it out.
it's not coming. It's not.
Do you need to
What
look
the
at? Do
heck?
you need to look at the roster?
I shouldn't. What? Dylan Cruz. Oh my goodness,
There
that
you
was
go.
bad. That was
I knew you were
bad.
gonna
My,
come.
my
I knew you were
brain's
gonna
not in the
come
right
to it.
place.
I was gonna let you. I
Holy
was gonna let you pull
gosh.
it. So yeah, yeah. I mean, offensively, he's head and shoulders above
Yeah.
anybody else in that draft class right now. Again, as we get closer to the draft itself, and we see the performances of some of these college players as the college season goes on. There's going to be some shuffling, right? There always is between now and June. But I don't know if there's going to be anybody that jumps out ahead of him. So this would be the time for the White Sox too, and in the fact that he fills a position for two of need for the White Sox.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the time we really need that number one pick. But
I
again,
will
I'm not
say
holding
I
my
do
breath
like
on it.
some of the other pieces. I think Emerson, Lombard, LeBron, and Barres are solid players. But yeah, Rock is a tier one prospect.
Yeah, but I mean, something to get excited about anyway.
Yeah,
So
100%.
yeah, we're about an hour in. I think we could probably wrap it up there. Oh, Wolf, just in time to
Late
see us
appearance.
sign off, buddy.
I missed you.
Yeah, and I kind of like Uncle Ted's. I'm gonna throw this comment up, but he says draft college backs and take all high school bats after round 10. The thing about drafting high school bats that late in the draft is getting them to commit.
They
Right,
never do.
right. You're talking about 10th round guys. The bonus pool is getting thin at that point. It's probably not enough to talk these guys out of, trying to stick around for a little bit and getting drafted higher and getting a higher bonus pool, especially now with NIL money in college. If these guys are, higher rated prospects out of high school, but they're not high enough rated to be, any better than 10th rounders in the MLB draft. At that point, it's most often going to be a wasted draft pick because you're not gonna get it. So
Shout out Miles Bailey.
hey,
Guy.
Yes. So I think I do like the idea though of going a little bit more college heavy here coming up in the next year or two as the youngsters kind of start graduating even more. If we start seeing, the Braden Montgomerys, we might see a George Wolkow in the next, year or two. All the young pitching that's going to come up. I mean, you got Sam Antonacci that's probably going to make he might force his hand this season. There's you've got Caleb Bonimer who's still down the list some, but he's going to grow. And he'll be, making his way up. And as long as he keeps doing the things that we think he's going to do, he'll be moving up through the system quickly. So, I think the focus on prep guys the last few years is going to start to turn into a mixture of college and prep guys, and the college guys are going to be closer to major league ready than say the college guys of the last two draft classes. So, I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be an interesting 2 seasons of drafts for the White Sox, and I think they finally have the right guys in place. And that's not to say anything bad about their past scouting regime. I just think now that the entire front office seems like it's kind of collaborating together and on the same page. There was some rumors, we'll say, of a little bit of discord between some of the guys that were around before and really having a hard time agreeing on direction and players. So, shout out to the new regime. We've been fooled once before. I hope we're not being fooled again, but we will let it play out from there. Wolf makes a good point here too. Clint Frazier has a YouTube channel now. He's got some interesting content. He had a video about the Yankees player development issues. This is now the second time I've heard about this. I'm gonna have to go check that out. So, thanks for pointing that out, Wolf. Again, and I haven't really had an opportunity to see it. Have you had an opportunity to hear any of this, Jake?
I've heard some other things from Clint Frazier, but nothing about that.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. But before we do, chat, would you guys like to offer up any hot takes and heaters? And if you do, go ahead and throw those in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and ask Jake if he's got any hot takes or heaters for us this week.
Hot takes or heaters?
Man, it's the name of the show. You ain't ready for this, dude?
No, not at all. I wasn't. This is.
Hey, listen, I'll give you a pass. You had a fender bender on your way home from work today, and we're rushing to get in here to the show. We weren't even sure if we were gonna have a show tonight. So, for those of you that now know, you're welcome. You can thank Jake for making it happen.
Yeah. No, hot take. They take a picture in the rule of 5. I don't think that's a hot take at all, but that's my take. A lukewarm take.
Lukewarm take. Okay. So my hot take is something that I brought up in the show earlier, and I'm gonna stick with it. But I think they are actively going to try to. They're going to try to trade away Benny. Whether or not we're hearing a lot about it, whether or not it gains a lot of interest or any kind of major returns, I think, me personally, if I'm Chris Getz, I'm pushing that agenda. If I'm the GM, I'm pushing that agenda because I feel like Brooks Baldwin, let's be honest, Andrew Benintendi's showing some slight decline in his defensive prowess out there. He's always had a noodle for an arm. No offense, Andrew, you just don't have much of an arm. I still have visions of that throw against the Sox where he threw it like 25 feet straight into the dirt and the ball rolled in while guys took 2 bases. Yeah, I think they're going to try to trade him in the offseason. If they don't trade him in the offseason, which I think is going to be their best opportunity, because if he has his typical slow start, he's not going to really have any value at the trade deadline. We need him to heat up the way he does in the second half early on if we want to have any value for him at the trade deadline. But that's my hot take.
Yeah,
so,
I like it.
Uncle Ted, there's a on fire hot take right there. I'm not saying that I don't like it, but that's fiery. Edgar Carroll to the Phillies for Andrew Painter and Justin Crawford.
0% chance.
It's spicy. It's spicy.
That might be
I
an
like it.
overpay for Adley Rutschman.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. There you go. So, all right, man. Well, we'll put a bow on it right there. We're gonna wrap it up. Again, as usual, thank you to all our chatters. We appreciate you guys for coming in and checking us out live. We don't give enough credit to our podcast listeners later on in the week, so we appreciate you guys too. By all means, if you want to hit us up, shoot some comments at us. You can find us on, obviously, the FutureSox Twitter page /X page. You can find my co-host and partner, Jacob Thome, on X at jthome21. You can find me at Danny Miller FS on X as well. If you guys are interested in our written content, you'll find all of that, including all of our recorded podcasts, at FutureSox.net. And behind a $2 Patreon paywall, you will find all of our exclusive content. We'll be back next week at 8 p.m., God willing. We appreciate all you guys. Until then, as always, for my co-host, Jacob Thome, I'm Danny Miller. Go White Sox.